Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this hearing today on this. I think we all share the concern of trying to assure that the funds that are forwarded to the students are repaid. But I'm struggling with the issue here in which we are treating the for-profit institutions in one way, and we aren't really analyzing this same effect in the not-for-profit institutions. I, for one, have benefited from a number of college students who are volunteering to work in my office because they can't find jobs, and yet they are tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And so if we're going to use a standard, I'm struggling with the regulation. We've now come up with rules, and we are going to determine, we're going to hold people accountable to a standard. Mr. Carnival, I know you've discussed this a little bit and tried to look at this issue. Is it fair for us to hold the not-for-profit institutions in a different category than the for-profit if we're making these analysis on a year-by-year basis first? And then second, a lot of kids come out, they struggle for a year or two, and then they get that first job. I mean, should we be doing this the next year, or should we be waiting 3 or 4 years to make this calculation?
The regulation essentially gives the institutions 4 years. That is, so it extends over a fairly lengthy period of time, and the calculation in terms of loan repayment allows 10 years for AA in some college, 15 for a BA, and 20 for selected programs like dental programs and so on. So in that sense, it is not one of the ways, I think, especially the amended regulation here, the way to think about this, truthfully, is the brunt of this is aimed at program improvement. The penalty part of this is very marginal, frankly. It's only 2% of the total. It's capped at 5. This is essentially a device for moving programs toward higher labor market value, is in the end what it is. The other point, and is raised by Mr. Cummins, is that it is true the institutions get 3 strikes on this. The students just get 1. That is, if you end up with huge debt, first of all, whether you default or not, you're not likely to return to school, and they don't. We know that. And that relates directly to the size of the loan and the wages that the program leveraged that allows them to pay it back. So it matters which program it was. And then the other difficulty for the students is you only get one bite at the apple, because debt doesn't, you can't go back and get more debt to go to school.
Okay. Mr. Alford, would you respond to this? Because I think that I have experienced, as I've visited institutions across the range, from community colleges to my universities to some of the schools and, you know, the for-profit schools. Many of the students in the for-profit schools are non-traditional students. In fact, this is one of the real opportunities they have where somebody's reaching back to them and saying, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you a skill that you can then take and find a way to gain employment in a very, very difficult market. And what I'm concerned about is the potential that this higher standard may lead a situation where those kinds of schools will say, fine, we are going to now stop reaching back to that student who's the least traditional, who's the toughest reach, because that's the most likely to fail. Let's just go find the safe middle.
Cherry pick.
Participate in that. So would you please tell me what your perception is?
Yeah, I think it would have a devastating consequence on the people I represent, our businesses who try to hire people from these communities. There's 2 big problems with my constituents. One is management trainees. Our more successful businesses scour this nation looking for good, educated black talent. Secondly is the labor, the lower level. Drugs. Can't pass a drug test, and that's a requirement for any insurance policy. So those are the 2 major problems. And one thing that's unfair too, sir, private for-profit schools have higher tuition because they don't have Uncle Sam and the state government and local governments giving them subsidies, tax-funded money. It's unfair to have a graft that shows all this high tuition, but they don't charge that much. If you put the tax subsidies in there, they'd probably be more expensive than for-profit schools, playing with numbers.
Thank you for making that point, Mr. Alford. Madam Chairman.